After a few years, I started to have doubts that he was actually mine. He did not look like my child. The more he started to grow, the more I just realized how different he looked compared to what I would expect a child of mine to look like. Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, gonna go over a story titled, They're Not My Kids and Not My Problem. And guys, this story, it's all about a guy. He's been married for a number of years. I would say at the very least 6. Has a son who's 6 years old. And he described that his marriage at the time was amazing. And it is amazing how many people say that until they find out just how not amazing their relationship with their wife is. Anyhow, he, from the get-go, started to have a suspicion that his son just didn't seem right. Didn't look like him, didn't act like him, and the older he got, he just didn't see any resemblance whatsoever. Not to mention that his wife started having more and more suspicious activity. And then one day, his second child was born, his daughter. And when the delivery room, when the daughter was obviously born, he could see right then and there that in no way, shape, or form is this his child, because obviously it was a mixed-race child. And at that point then, all the love and kindness he had towards his wife went right out the door, total 180, and he is done with all of them. And as you can imagine, a lot of people have issue with that because he's not only walking away from her, they don't blame him for that, it seems, but the son who's 6 years old. It's a tough situation because that son is not his child and the result of her affairs and all that. So it's an interesting situation. So I'm going to get into this and I will share more as I go along. So it starts off, he says, about a month ago, I found that both of my children were the result of my soon-to-be ex-wife's affairs. I've had a feeling for a while now that both of them were not mine. 6 years ago when my son was born, I was the happiest I've been in my entire life. I had married my best friend, we had a child together, and everything seemed amazing. How many of these stories pretty much start off just like this? I know many of you guys have been watching me for a while, and you've heard many times, it's amazing. And by the way, notice he said, I married my best friend. That's a problem right then and there. Because when a woman just sees a guy as a friend, well, that pretty much says everything. But a lot of guys think, oh, we're best friends, so it's the best situation in the world. Wrong. Because two best friends ain't going to have that connection. And she ain't going to see him the same way. And by the way, this is how she treats her best friend. I hate to see how she treats her worst enemy. That was until he started getting older. After a few years, I started to have doubts he was actually mine. He did not look like my child, and the more he started to grow, the more I realized just how different he looked compared to what I would expect a child of mine to look like. I'm not petty or paranoid enough to let that alone drive me. It was my WHORE of a wife that really set my alarms off. Whenever she went out, she never went out where she said she did. She would have huge holes in her schedule and could never explain to me. She would refuse to allow me to interact with anyone from her workplace. And a close friend of hers accused her of flirting with her significant other at the time. Well, clearly this guy is not the type of guy that pays attention to red flags, stands up to her, checks her, lays down the law. And when a man doesn't do these things, particularly when there's BS going on, there's only going to be more BS. Problem is, our society has conditioned men to be pleasers and butt kissers and nice guys and white knights. And the problem is when you behave that way, when you're mistreated, this type of crap can happen. I'm not saying a guy can't be good to his lady if she deserves it, treats him well, respects him, all that. But when she doesn't do anything to deserve that and he still treats her amazing and great and the queen and kisses her ass and she pretty much is the center of his universe, you all know what happens. Still though, I loved her like the fool I was. Smack. Famous last words. She told me up and down how much she loved me whenever one of her lies caught up with her. She had convinced me that despite the fact that she was a lying and manipulative woman, that she wasn't a lying, manipulative WHORE. Last year, she got pregnant again, and I still held out a small amount of hope that it was mine. But when her daughter was born, it was obvious she was mixed race. I refused to sign the birth certificate, and the paternity test I demanded afterwards proved my suspicions right all along. Neither of them were mine. This poor guy. I mean, obviously, you want to smack him for being so clueless and not standing up to her and all that. But at the end of the day, he's another guy, another victim, and it's not cool. The day I got those test results were the day I filed for divorce from that WHORE and walked away from the family I had created. I knew it would destroy her son's life to see me walk out. Despite my concerns, I was the best dad I could be to him. I loved him with all my heart and put 110% into being the father that he deserved. Now, though, when I see him, I'm filled with disgust. Disgust for my WHORE of a wife. I gotta watch what I say here, guys. You almost heard me say it. YouTube is that crazy. I gotta watch what I say to continue doing what I do every day. Disgust with myself for not trusting my instincts, and disgust that the last 6 years of my life have been for nothing. I've been told by multiple people now that I'm a monster for leaving my son. My ex has tried on multiple occasions since I moved out to use him to guilt me into getting back with her. She will have him call me at random hours of the night crying and begging for his daddy to come back. The day I moved out, she paraded him in the room as I packed my things to show me how much damage I'm doing. In every conversation that he has brought up, both offline and online, I'm berated and shamed. That despite the fact that I'm not the boy's biological father, I am his dad. So, this is an extremely tough situation. To some people, they say, no, it's not a tough situation. He should be with the kid no matter what. To other people, they would say, no, it's not your child. It was a big lie, blah, blah, blah. He should walk. I say simply this, is that at the end of the day, until somebody truly has been in this guy's shoes, where they have been raising a child all these years, and then find out that their wife is a lying, repeat offender of cheating and affairs and all that, and that child is not yours, until somebody has been in those shoes and truly knows what that's like, they got no right to judge. What do I think? I think, again, it's a tough situation. I just did a whole series, a 5-part series, the Scorched Earth series, which I know most of you guys that are watching this saw. That was great. And a guy found out that his 6-year-old child, same age, but a girl, wasn't his. But as hard as it was, and even though he thought maybe he wouldn't be able to do it, he loved that girl so much, he still took her in. And I thought it was amazing. I thought it was great that guy did that. But if he didn't, that was his right also. I think this guy is obviously so hurt and betrayed that this is his initial reaction, which again, you can't blame him. But it is not the child's fault. 100% it's not the child's fault. And if he decided to stay in the child's life, yes, he'd have to interact with the mom. Absolutely, And if his name's on the birth certificate, perhaps he could have went down the route that the other guy did, where he got off the birth certificate and then maybe tried to adopt the kid. I don't know. But nobody can totally point the fingers until they've been through the same situation, because it is tough. Maybe he'll change his mind in time. Anyway, he says, what I have sadly now realized is that to most, my own feelings mean nothing. My parents are my only supporters through all this, with my own siblings calling me a despicable person for abandoning a child like that. You know what? It is not your siblings' business or their problem. And if they're not on your side, tell them to go F themselves. But thank God this guy has his parents on his side. Nobody is actually stopping for a second to realize how bad he's been hurt and mistreated and abused. Nobody's doing that. My feelings of betrayal and sadness mean nothing because a child is involved. I know it's not his fault. I know that the man he called his father for his entire life just walked away. But why am I expected to man up? Why should I have to pretend everything is fine and I do not feel contempt for the entire situation? Why should I put my own life and feelings aside? I never was the boy's father. I loved him like one honestly still do, but I would come to hate and contempt him if I had to play that role. Hate myself for not standing up and taking my own life back into my own hands. He is not my child, and even though it's not his fault, he is not my problem anymore. Well, again, this is this guy's decision. You can't blame him for that. I'd probably handle things. To be honest with you, I can't say I would do it differently because I don't know. Really. Until you're in that situation, you don't know. I would like to think that I would find a way for the young boy. If it was a good boy and he was loving and good kid and loyal and all that, not a little shithead, I'd like to think that I would try to find a way, even though the mother's awful for the kid's sake, because it's not his fault. But until someone's in that situation, you don't know. He continues on with some updates. He says, wow, this post certainly blew up. I guess airing my dirty laundry accomplished something. Anyway, I've seen a few common questions, so I'll answer them here. Number 1. Her son knows the truth of why I left. I sat down and told him that I'm not his father and that his mother lied to me and cheated on me. I made it clear I'm not mad at him, that it is not his fault this is happening, and no matter what, I will still think he's an amazing kid. I don't know how a 6-year-old is going to quite understand all this, but at least he's talking to him and telling him it's not your fault. Number 2, some are saying that I never loved him or he was always looking for a way out. It's hard to convey emotions in a text post like this, and even harder to allow vitriolic hatred towards your WHORE of a wife gets you the last 6 years of your life. You can believe what you want, though. Number 3, I have a lawyer, and I'm not going to be paying for child support or alimony. You shouldn't have to. End of story. In fact, one could say he could sue for paternity fraud. He goes on, last though, for all those who say I should stay in her son's life and be his father, that's not realistically possible. I do not hate him, but I've been cheated on, lied to, and used by a vile, self-centered WHORE who has now caught her children up in her lies and deceit. He's a casualty of her actions and blameless. However, it can never change the fact of the harsh reality we find ourselves in. I don't hate him. I feel so sad when I think about how he feels. But all I see when I look at him is 6 years of my life I was lied to. 6 years of my life I was used. And 6 long years of built up doubts and frustrations with a woman who used me. Now remember, this guy all along thought something didn't seem right. You know, kid doesn't look like me or act like me. You all heard it. And it really is a shame for this poor guy. Because again, we're focusing on the kid here, but how about him? All this time she's been cheating on him left and right, lying to him. And again, there are red flags. And obviously I'm sure now he knows to pay attention to those, but it's a real big shame. He says, there is no putting aside my hatred to try and be in his life, because the life I lived with him was nothing more than a facade cultivated by his mom. This is the harsh reality I find myself dealing with, and I simply cannot in good faith put myself or him through it anymore. Another update, he says, since I'm seeing many armchair lawyers in the comments saying this post is fake on grounds of what I said above, I will not reveal what state I live in, but I'm currently going through a fun legal process called disestablishment of paternity. Won't shut up 90% of you who think Google makes you a lawyer, but at least I try. It is amazing how many armchair lawyers there are out there thanks to Google. Another update, he says, this is going to be our last edit before I move on from this small little distraction I created for myself. First, I want to thank everyone for their kind words to me. In the comments, the DMs, and the chat. You have given me a bright day for the first time in a while. I wish I could reply to you, but I cannot thank you enough. Secondly, I've noticed many people criticizing the word I used very profusely to describe my son's soon-to-be ex. People were criticizing him because he was calling her a WHORE, even though she was cheating on him left and right, and 2 kids that he thought were his were somebody else's, and they don't think it's warranted that he calls her that. Welcome to today's world, guys, of the attitude out there, of no accountability, that believe all, that whole thing. I just want to say the place I am now is one of the darkest I've been in my life. I see nothing but white-hot rage for the woman who ruined my life. Is what I said inappropriate? Is the word I used to describe her dehumanizing and vile? Yes, I will admit that, but I won't apologize for it. Good for you, because you don't have to apologize here. It's completely warranted. She is evil. What I wrote here today was the truth of the world as it is for me right now. It is the raw, unadulterated stream of consciousness of a flawed man. I do not intend to try and get people to hate women or to push a misogynistic message about how women are terrible. This is not my goal here, and that is not the message of this post. I understand why people do not like the word I used here, and you know what, I accept that as a valid criticism of what I did here today. So obviously all these people criticizing him they weren't paying attention to what was going on to him. They were paying attention that he was using the word WHORE. Newsflash, that's used quite often, and her actions warranted that. I came here today to simply find some outlet for the situation I find myself in, to rant, mourn, and deal with the complex and raw emotions that have torn me apart for the last month. A place where I can freely speak my mind, and you know what? I did that. Today was pretty alright thanks to you guys. Well, you can, for the most part, freely speak your mind on Reddit. However, understand that there's lots of people on Reddit that, live to criticize, and there's a certain, I would say, political bias for a lot of people on Reddit for these types of things. He says, again, to everyone who showed me love and support, thank you. From the bottom of my flawed heart. To those who came here disagreeing with me but showed me respect, thank you as well. After the shame and ridicule I faced my real life, the respect you showed me despite your disagreement was nice. So long, and thanks for all the fish. So, the whole thing came about, even though he'd been wronged horribly, everybody was focusing on how horrible he was for using that word or the kid. And back to the kid thing, again, until somebody's truly in that situation, this is my opinion, they can't truly judge. I'd love to think in a situation like that, I would do the kinder, compassionate thing with the kid. But again, I don't know unless I was in his shoes. The story I did recently, the whole Scorched Earth 5-part series, that guy, even though he was going through hell, still loved his daughter so much that even though it was some other dude's kid, he still took her in. Got off the birth certificate and then adopted her and all that. But this guy, different route. Maybe in time he'll change his mind. I don't know. But right now he's furious and all that, and we shall see. But anyhow, guys, Sodom and Gomorrah just had some coffee. Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0 world proves it every time. So, at the end of the day, paternity tests, sadly, it's being shown, needs to be more and more common thing. So, alright guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And guys, you come across a really good story like me to share here on the channel, email me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just be sure to, don't forget to include the link to the thing. And also guys, if you also have a good story you'd like to share with me, something that happened earlier in life that you think would be really good for the channel, a crazy story, something unbelievable, or something just entertaining as all hell, send it my way and I'll definitely cover it in the future. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.